Well, hello there. My name is Beth Gaff, and I am the technology trainer here at the Peabody Public Library. And first off, I want to welcome you to an amazing class that is being offered and brought to you by Grow with Google. The library has recently partnered with Grow with Google to bring you some pretty amazing different kinds of classes. And I'm really excited about today's workshop and today's class, Coaching Your Team to Success. So, I just wanted to let you know a few things about this class before you get started. You may stop this, go away from this, and come back to this at any point. You're under no obligation to sit here under one setting. So, you can, at some points, I may even ask you to stop the class so you can do some of the exercises that I'm asking so you have a better understanding of how to coach your team to success. So, we are going to get started today. I cannot wait. And we have a lot of classes that we'll be doing with Grow with Google as a partnership. So without further ado, let's get started on today's class/workshop, Coach Your Team to Success. So, when we talk about coaching our team to success, what we're actually talking about are those entrepreneurs that are thinking about starting up a business, or those people that have actually taken the plunge and are starting up a business. Maybe you are not the owner of the business, but you're the one in charge of everything and the people and all of those things. So, possibly direct sales, possibly a director, possibly just a supervisor whatever the situation may be, it all involves being able to have our team, staff, employees successful, right? Because success is the key to make the business successful. So, with that thought, as a startup, with all those things I mentioned and what a startup is, what might this 65% represent to you as the person that's in charge of a bunch of people? So if you're not sure what the 65% may actually have to do with what we're talking about today, this is the statistic of startups that fail because of people related issues. So many startups think about their people and their human resources processes after their product and marketing strategy. But in actuality, this could not be more important. This stuff really does matter. Nothing is more important than the people that you bring on your team to accomplish your dream with you. You can have the most brilliant business idea, and without the right team, it will never work. So just think about that. I mean, you could have the best team that you could possibly have, and, you know, if you don't have what this was talking about, the business ideas, the dreams, the accomplishments, then really you don't have a whole lot. And it takes us some time to figure that out. So this 65% is pretty significant. So we are going to go over a few ground rules before we get started today. I want to review a few of these ground rules to make sure that we get the most out of our time. This is going to go at your pace, so however long you would like to take. But typically here at the library, it's about an hour to an hour and a half class. And I want to make this as interactive as possible in order to really ensure the session fits your needs and we utilize the expertise with everybody that actually came to the class or has given feedback to the class. So we are going to focus on four different areas, sorry about that, that have to do with ground rules. So first off, we're going to focus on human values. So as I mentioned earlier, this session is all about people. So that's what we're going to spend our energy on today is the people focus. Being able to change your perspective. You might have some ideas of what works, doesn't work for you and your startup today, but I would encourage you to put that bias aside and be willing to change your perspective. You never know what you might learn. So during this class, maybe put that judgment aside and even maybe a couple hours to an entire day, just kind of think about how you might be able to change your perspective of the way that you are with your staff, employees, team members, whatever you might want to call them. An important thing is to be brave. So, throughout this class, I'm going to encourage you to do some real coaching with some real topics, and it requires you to be as authentic and vulnerable as you possibly can. Honesty is your friend when it comes to these things. So, you want to make sure that your employees, your staff, your members feel that honesty when you're talking to them. But of course, we want to be playful with it. So you want to be interactive, you want to ask questions, we can be silly with this. This is a great time to step out of the seriousness or the comfort zone of your role as a founder, director, management, supervisor, and step into a learning lab where we're going to experiment, laugh, learn, and just have a really good time today with this class. So we have an agenda today. Here is what we are going to go over and some learning objectives for the day here, or at least during the time that you are actually viewing this class. So first off, we need to understand what makes a good manager based on the attributes and behaviors that's used. And this is all based on Google's internal research. So we're going to talk about the 10 different attributes that make up a good manager. We're also going to learn how to be a good coach for our team, employees, staff, and understand when to direct, when to mentor, when to coach. We'll also get some hands on practicing that you can actually do with your staff team members to build some of that basic coaching skill. And then lastly, I am going to help you to understand through Google how to provide meaningful and development feedback and with your team. The idea here is really to maximize their potential, performance, and own their own development. So, we are going to be talking about all of these areas in different parts and sessions. So, hopefully, we can get the most out of our time today. It's important to note that the word management is somewhat controversial sometimes, perhaps to you or to someone that you have direct contact with. It's something that sounds unappealing or boring to some, but Google has come to realize that your manager is one of the strongest indicators for staying at a company or leaving. So, what does this mean for you? There are some really basic things, many of which I'm sure you're already doing to ensure you are a great manager. And the other people managers are on your team are also ensuring the highest effectiveness of your team in your startup. So, as we present each of these attributes, I want you to feel free to pause this, go away from this, and kind of just think about the tips that are being brought up to you and how you might be able to integrate these into your normal coaching skills. So, first off, we're going to talk about creating an inclusive environment. So, are you modeling a respectful and inclusive environment? Are you encouraging everyone to show up as their true, authentic selves? And are you supporting your team in good times and in bad? So, that's going to be what that inclusive environment means. Number two, empower the team and don't micromanage. So, are you involved in every nitty gritty detail your team makes? Um, do they feel empowered to make decisions, take risks, and innovate on their own? So that's what number two is talking about, being able to micromanage and empower the team. Number three, support career development and discuss performance. Do you communicate performance expectations clearly? Are you aware of your team's career goals and dreams? Do you help your team find opportunities and to continue to grow in their career and potential? So are you supporting that career development with your team? Number four, being a good coach. Are you providing specific feedback? Are you asking good questions to help your team find solutions and explore options? Are you having regular one-to-ones with each member of your team? And that includes feedback and coaching. So think about that for a minute. Are you doing some of those things? Number five, being a good communicator. Do you encourage open dialogue on your team? Are you responsive and transparent within your team? Are you truthful and calm? And are you a good listener? So those are really good attributes that have to do with being a good communicator. Number 6, have a clear vision and strategy for the team. This one is especially important for startups. As people join you, they likely join you for the vision of your company. So you do have a compelling vision and strategy that motivates and inspires your team. Do you involve your team in creation of the vision, and are you able to clearly communicate it? So you definitely want to have a clear vision and a strategy for the team of what the expectation is. Number 7, being productive and results oriented. Are you able to translate the vision and strategy into tangible goals? Are you clear about who owns what? Do you structure your team and allocate resources appropriately? Do you have a diverse team with different skills, perspectives, experiences? Think about your team as a whole. Okay. Number 8, collaborate. Are you modeling collaboration across all parts of the team? Do you hold your team accountable for upholding your cultural and team values? Do you contribute to the culture and community of your team by working across functions and locations when applicable? Are you doing these things? Are you collaborating with your team? Number 9, be a strong decision maker. Are you able to make tough decisions efficiently in a way that is good for your company? Do you clearly communicate that decision? So, for example, when you get full consensus versus when you make an executive decision as a founder. So you need to be a good decision maker when it comes to management, managing a staff, employees, team members. Number 10, have key technical skills to help advise the team. Lastly, are you able and willing to roll up your sleeves and actually do work alongside your team? Do you understand the challenge and complexities of the work your team is doing? Are you constantly learning and growing your skills to meet the needs of your business? So, what do you think our focus would be on? And are you already doing these things? Which areas do you feel are applicable and maybe not so applicable? So, these were the 10 attributes of being a good manager. Hopefully, you have a little bit better understanding of what is expected of you as a coach, or at least how the employees feel the expectation of you as a coach, manager, supervisor, boss figure. So, today we're going to focus on what it means to be a good coach. So, I want to know, what is coaching to you? So, this is something to think about as we're kind of talking about what being a good coach actually is. So, like I said in the slide before, what does it mean to be a good coach? So, coaching is a mindset, a way of being, a way of relating, and a way of connecting. Coaching is all about unlocking someone's potential. This is huge for you as a founder because eventually it will free up your time, empower your team, and essentially up level your entire company. This is like the old saying, you can either catch someone a fish or you can teach them how to fish. Coaching is investing the time with someone to help them learn how to fish. Kind of a good bad scenario there, but I think you kind of get the point. So, coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximum their own performance. It is helping them to learn rather than teaching them. So, when do you coach? As a people manager and leader, one of the most difficult things is knowing when and how to coach. You're asked to do a lot. You have to teach, train, mentor, and coach. You have to be able to flex your approach based on the circumstances, the needs of your team, and the opportunity of growth. Of course, as a people manager and leader, there are many times when you'll still have to be directive to tell someone exactly what and how to do something. But the more you can spend on this right side of the continuum, the more you'll be able to free up yourself, empower your team, and maximize the potential of every person you work with. Coaching is all the way on the right side of the continuum because it's about the individual or the employee you're working with. It's about their ideas, their development, and nothing about your own experience or knowledge. This is a chance for you to step outside yourself, take the pressure off, and simply focus on the person that you're coaching. So we can see this manager continuum. You should be all the way to the right side of that. Take a moment and pause this video and just kind of take a look at this manager's continuum, where you should be. So how can you be an effective coach, and how can you begin coaching today? The idea is not for you to come out of this and become a certified coach. The idea is that you have become more coach like in your approach with your team, your employees, and maybe even people in your personal life. The true foundation of being a coach is based on two things: being a good listener and good asking. So, good listening and good asking. Very basic skills, which I'm sure you're all fairly good at already, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the ways to show this out, truly listen and see your team, and to be curious in asking some of those open-ended questions that kind of leave you off of the hook. We're going to start with good listening and how we can be better listeners. I hear you and I see you. So we're the next slide is going to be talking about the different levels of listening. So we all know what it means to be an active listener, to tilt your body language towards the person you're talking to nod, make eye contact. But did you know there are different levels of listening that can indicate where your focus is when you're in a conversation? So the first level is level 1. Level 1 listening is really internal listening. And we've all done this, and we've all been on the receiving end of this kind of listening, where someone is talking to you and you're nodding and you're saying, uh-huh, yeah, of course. But in your head, you're reviewing your grocery list, wondering if you remembered to feed your cat, and planning what you're going to eat for dinner. This is a really passive attention, stuck in your own head, and really is disengaging you from the person that you're talking with. Level 2 is the factual and focus listening. So this would be like two lovers in a restaurant where everything around them disappears. They're truly lost in conversation and so engaged with one another. Their focus is on facts, words, and objects. Okay? So level 3 is truly whole body listening and really focuses on bringing empathy into the conversation. You are, of course, engaged in what that person is saying, but you're also engaged in everything that's happening around you: the environment, the values, stories, feelings, anything that's involved in what you're hearing, and you're truly suspending your own agenda and judgment. So these are all the different kinds of levels. Where do you think you should be when you're in a coaching conversation or really any kind of a conversation? So if you need to, go ahead and pause the video and just kind of think about where you should be. Well, if you answered level 2 and 3, you are absolutely right and you are right on course. And it's like human nature to want to slip into level 1, to think about, oh, that's happened to me, or to get lost in your own head. But the more you can bring your attention back to the human being in front of you, to listen to their stories without judgment, or a need to paraphrase or connect it to you, the more fully they will feel seen and heard. This is a huge, huge, powerful tool in coaching. All right, since we've talked about good listening, it is now time for us to touch base on good asking for those open ended questions. Coaching has so much to do with asking good questions. The good news is that when you're coaching, you never need to know the answer. So congratulations. You can just sit back and ask open-ended questions all day long. Of course, we really want to avoid yes/no questions in coaching because these questions don't allow for greater discovery and learning for the person that you're coaching or the coachee. A great tip for you when you're in a coaching conversation or trying to coach your employee is to ask yourself, Am I asking this question for my own information gathering or for my client's discovery? If you're ever asking the question just to gather information on the topic at hand, then don't ask it. You truly don't need to know anything about the topic when you're coaching. Oftentimes, knowing more makes it more difficult for you to remain unbiased and to not give advice. The best types of questions to ask are what and how questions because they solicit more thoughtful exploration from the coachee. Who, when, and where questions can be useful, but usually are more informative and factual based. We want to steer clear from why questions because they can often get people into a defensive place. A great alternative is how come. So these are just some standard rules for making open-ended questions and how we can remove ourselves from the conversation and engage more of our employees with us. Okay, so we're going to move right along here. Coaching and conversation is active listening, and we're going to start with WAIT. So, WAIT stands for Why Am I Talking? This is a great acronym to keep in mind while coaching. Of course, asking powerful questions is very important, but as the coach, you should really only be talking about 20% of the time at most. Try to bottom line, ask simple, open ended questions, and then step back. Silence is okay. If there is silence, it usually means you've asked a very thought provoking question. You don't need to fill the silence, and you don't need to qualify your question, elaborate, or provide input. Just remember to ask yourself before you speak, why am I talking? So you're probably wondering where you should start. Here are some great sample questions you can use to get started coaching. Number one, what's happening? This is all about establishing the current state. Coaching is present and future focused. So this is all about bringing the coachee to the present moment to understand what's happening exactly now. Number two, what's most important? This is great to get an understanding of what's most important to the coachee, where they want to go, and to establish what they need to make an ideal future state for themselves or for the business. And number three, how do you get there? This is about laying the groundwork and having the coachee understand how to take the steps to move towards their ideal future state. Once again, in this place, you don't need to advise or tell them what to do. It's all in their heads. Good coaching is based on the foundational belief that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, which might sound like a bunch of la la, but what it really means is that every person you're working with and coaching has all the solutions and ideas inside them. When you're coaching, your job is merely to help them uncover those solutions. So right here I have our GROW model, and this is a great model that you can use to begin coaching, which is called the GROW model. This will help you work through a basic coaching framework when you're working with your team. So GROW stands for goal, reality, options, and will aid is the natural evolution of coaching a conversation. The key here is not to rush to the will or to the action. Coaching is all about discovery. You should spend 90% of your time in the goal, reality, and option space, really focusing on the goal and reality. It's so rare for people to explore options aloud, to dream about their goal, and to explore the reality. Coaching is the time for this. It's a human tendency to rush towards the solutions and to immediately find the problem and fix it. But if you free yourself from this urge, you can truly help your team explore and grow on their own without a need to find the solution. So with goal, what you want the goal to be, the reality of today of that goal, the options for actions to place that goal, and the will that it takes to have the steps to make that goal happen. So here are some sample questions from that Grow coaching model that you might actually find helpful. And I'm only going to go through a couple of these in each category. So in the goals, which is your ask and listening, What does success look like for you? And this is you as a coach asking the coachee, okay? And what is your ideal outcome from that goal, right? So the reality, which is giving feedback and perspective. How could you learn more to achieve that? How would you rank your priorities in context to that? And of course, your options, which is exploring possibilities and experiments. So, what experiments could you try to make the reality of the goal come true? And what are steps forward to get you to that goal or the reality to the goal? And of course, the will is to support planning and connect to. So, what is a small step forward instead of all the leaps forward? And how can we track this progress to make it the most beneficial for us? So these are just some of those Grow Coaching Model open-ended questions, and we are going to actually see these again a little bit later. So the next part of our workshop or our class is coaching practice, and we're going to talk about how you can have good coach practicing skills. So I could sit here and talk to you about coaching for another week, but the best way to learn is to simply roll up your sleeves and jump right in. So here's your opportunity to practice some coaching here within this streamed class. So I'm going to advise you because in our actual workshop or in our class, we pair up with each other. One is the coach, one is the coachee, and then we reverse roles. So I'm going to give you a challenge today. Your challenge today is to try to be the best coach that you can be to your team or your team members. Try a one-on-one with some of those members. So you're going to pair yourself up with somebody. And one thing to keep in mind is coach the person and not their problem or topic. You don't need to find any solutions or give any advice. And I know it might be incredibly difficult not to because by human nature, we want to fix things. But give it a shot and try a different perspective and be a little bit playful with it. So we are going to try this coaching experience. On the next slide, I'm just going to tell you that the scenario right now. So, what I would like for you to do is think about a scenario. It could be any challenge, big or small, that you might want to seek coaching for. So, while you're thinking about this, I want you to think about who you might want to have a coaching experience with. So each of you should have the opportunity to coach and be the coachee. So if you are a manager and you have an assistant, this would be a great, great experiment for you and your assistant to do together before you actually start pulling in the rest of your staff. And for 3 minutes, I want the coach to coach the coachee. And I'm going to put those open-ended questions back up here for you so that you can see those while you're doing this experiment. After 3 minutes, I want you to shift roles. Now the coachee is now the coach. And we're going to use those open-ended questions again. And then I want you to give each other feedback on how you felt that the experiment went. And we're going to actually talk about feedback a little bit more later on in the class. But this is just an experiment and a challenge for you today to try to learn some of these open-ended questions without taking it personal or involving yourself in the situation at all. Asking those open-ended questions, sitting back and allowing your employees, your team to answer those, and then bring it back together and talk about what you guys discussed. Go ahead, pause the video now and go ahead and do your challenge. So here are those open-ended questions. One more time, part of our Grow coaching model for goals, reality, options, and will. So these would be the questions that you're going to use for your challenge. Have fun with it, be brave, and be playful because this is all about just the learning experience of being a better coach. So let's try some of these open-ended questions with our challenge. We're now going to jump forward a little bit and we're going to talk about growth through feedback. So, hopefully, you had a really good time with that exercise, being the coach, being the coachee, and learning some different ways of those open-ended questions where you can just sit back and let your employees answer the way that they want, and you weren't trying to give advice or fix anything. So now we're going to talk about growth through feedback and how that's going to help you as a coach with your coachees. Hopefully we've all been given feedback, and hopefully we've also all given the feedback. We know it's a great positive thing intended to help us grow and develop, yet when someone says those words, I have some feedback for you, it can often be fear-inducing phrase. So my goal today is to help you begin to see what a gift feedback is and begin to give that gift to each other of your team on a regular, consistent basis. Think of a time that you received constructive feedback and you really valued it. What made that so? So that's what we're going to be focusing on right now is some of that feedback. So when you're giving feedback, keep in mind that you don't want to pile on just a bunch of constructive feedback, not a lot of constructive criticism. It's important to always acknowledge what someone is doing well. We also want to avoid sandwiching feedback where we say one good thing, one bad thing, one good thing, one bad thing. People will see right through that. You want to give a ratio of constructive and positive feedback of a 5-to-1 manner. That means you should be acknowledging your team's performance, and when you see good things, say so. And of course, when there is an opportunity to provide constructive feedback, also say so. We're going to review a framework for delivering feedback and help you understand the best time place to deliver this feedback to your team for the maximum impact. So, what do you think of this? Are you currently delivering feedback to your team? Do you have any tools you like to use when it comes to giving this feedback? So, the 5-to-1 ratio is keeping in balance. So, good, 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 not good. This is more of a 3-to-1 ratio, but you get the idea. We don't want to sandwich it with good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. It should be, well, I've noticed that you've done this, this, and this good. However, I've also noticed that maybe this could use some type of an improvement. That way you've already boosted them up. They're feeling good. And that one little setback is something to work on more so than constructive criticism. All right. So have you ever heard the old saying, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it? Well, approach is everything when it comes to feedback. If you deliver feedback in an ineffective way, it could have a negative impact on the moral of your team, their development, and their trust in you, and their commitment to your company. So, this is where approach really matters. You need to find a style that works for you. But here is a framework that Google recommends to ensure your feedback is grounded, action oriented, and truly aim to develop your team and not criticize them. Your feedback should always start with the situation. Exactly when did you see this happening? Avoid generalization, be as specific as possible. And then you can move to behavior that you observed. What did they do or say? And then lastly, and most importantly, is the impact. What's the impact of the behavior? Or in other words, what's the purpose of providing this feedback? Once you move through this framework, you can work with your employee to clarify any questions, create options, and agree on next steps to implement on the feedback. So as a tip, link the impact to something they care about. Critical business goal, personal development goal. Discuss and clarify, create options, and agree on the next steps. Feedback is crucial when it comes to coaching and developing a successful team. So here are some examples of what the SBI framework looks like in action. SBI, of course, meaning situation, behavior, and impact. So first I'm going to read through the SBI of example A, and then I'm going to read through the SBI of example B. One is meant to be a positive feedback and one is meant to be a constructive feedback. So with our example A, the situation is you're at the event, the investor, and you're at the investor meeting and you're there early. So you're earlier at the investor meeting earlier. So the behavior, you balance sharing our ideas with hearing from them nicely. So there's your behavior. The impact, the investor told me that they thought we clearly understood their desires. So this is a very positive feedback. You've got your situation, the behavior that goes with the situation, and as a result, the impact of that situation and behavior. So with B, the situation is when you presented your proposal to the director, that's your situation. The behavior, you presented everything and held all their questions until the end. And as a result of that, the impact, the director didn't seem very happy that they had to wait until the end. So this is a constructive feedback, although workable. It is constructive. So you just need to take every situation and every scenario and base it off of this formula for feedback: situation, behavior, and impact. Here's my problem. This is what I did. And as a result, this is what happened. So here is a model that Google has found that really works. But the most important thing is that you're giving consistent, timely, and actionable feedback to your team on a consistent basis. This should not be something you're doing only during performance reviews or only each quarter. This should be on a consistent, ongoing basis. It's all in the service of your team and therefore your company. So, number one is mindset for giving feedback. It is always positive because it shows you care about their success. So, this is a summary of the feedback that we've talked about today. Number two, try using the steps. Preparation is key. Be yourself, authentic, and honest, because if you don't, your employees are going to see right through you. Adapt the conversation to your style and to your direct report style. Share more positive motivational feedback than developmental, that 5-to-1 scenario. So you're not wanting to sandwich those type of items. So this is a little bit of a summary that goes along with the feedback situation that we've been discussing. So I would, take a moment and pause this video and just kind of get yourself grounded on the feedback, the questions that are going to give you that feedback, and what it is that you're wanting out of your team, or possibly even what your team is wanting out of you. So remember, feedback goes on both ends. It's you giving it as well as them giving it, so that everybody can be on the same page and make your business as successful as possible. Okay, so we have covered a lot of stuff today. So we are ready to recap some of those important factors that we have been talking about, especially if you minimize this several times. And I just want to keep everybody up to date. So we're going to do a real quick recap of the class today. So this is something important that we covered. We learned about the attributes that made up a good people manager. Remember our 10 attributes? We learned all of these attributes earlier, so if you've forgotten what they are, you can always go back to this section of the class and review those as well. But what we covered today was the 10 attributes of becoming a good manager. We focused in on what it means to be a good coach. We used this GROW model, our goal, reality, options, and will section. So again, if you missed some of this, you can go back to the front of the class here and catch yourself back up on this GROW model. So we focused on a lot of this to help grow our business, our employees, and make them exceptional and the way that we would like them to be. We also discussed how to give feedback to help develop your employees, your team, and your startup using the SBI formula: situation, behavior, and impact. So if you need a refresher on that, then you can go back to the feedback section of our class today and get some of these scenarios for that formula and feedback. And remember, you want to do that feedback. your employees are really needing that. So that should be coming from both ends, the receiving end as well as you giving the feedback. So everybody can work together to make the situation, the behavior, uh, a, a very, very good impact on the business itself. Okay, well, wow. What an amazing class that we had today. And I want to thank you for being a part of it and going on this little journey with me today to better be a more successful coach to your team, your employees, and so forth and so on. This was brought to us by Grow with Google. I want to thank Grow with Google with our partnership with them and them bringing us these amazing classes that can make us better people in the long run. And once again, without you, there would be no reason for me to have this class. So I want to thank you for taking the time to at least listen to a little bit, if not all, of this class to better be a more successful work environment for your employees, your staff, and to make it to where you are a better coach for them. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to Grow with Google.